This is our top story. Now, as Panjshir, the final resistance front, falls to the Taliban, sources tell CNN News 18 that the names of the top posts of the new regime have almost been finalized. Mullah Muhammad Hassan Akhund is likely to be the head of state, while Mullah Baradar and Mullah Salam will be his deputies. The Haqqanis will also play a major role in the government. Their head, Sirajuddin Haqqani, is likely to be the interior minister, and the Haqqanis will nominate all the governors. Meanwhile, Zabiullah Mujahid will be the spokesperson to Hassan Akhund. However, till now, there is no sign of Taliban Supreme Leader Habibullah Akhundzada. So that is what's coming in when it comes to the creation of the new Taliban regime, the big names that are doing the rounds as per our sources. So let's get you an overview of what the new regime is likely to look like. What are the big names which will be at the helm of affairs in Afghanistan after the fall of the Panjshir resistance? If we look at what our sources are telling us, Mullah Hassan Akhund, a name out of nowhere, he is likely to be the present head of state and the head of the decision-making council. So he will be the head of the new Taliban regime, or he will call out all the shots. He will have two deputies under him as per our sources. Mullah Baradar will be one of them. He's the co-founder of the Taliban and heads the political office of the terror outfit, and also the other deputy will be Mullah Abdul Salam Zaif, who's a former Taliban ambassador to Pakistan. So we can also see that hand of the Pakistan establishment also coming in. Sirajuddin Haqqani, the top leader of the Haqqani network, he is close to the Al-Qaeda. He will also be a part of the new regime. He is likely to be the interior minister. Mullah Amir Khan Mutaki, he's a member of the Quetta Shura Council. He is likely to be the foreign minister of the new Taliban regime. So the contours are becoming clearer of who will be at the helm of affairs, but that tussle between the different factions continues. So these are what sources are telling us for now, but changes are likely to take place in the next couple of weeks as those factions try to come to a certain kind of understanding. But more breaking news from Afghanistan as that tussle continues between the different factions. What we are learning is that the second round of an uprising is taking place in Afghanistan, coming in from the people of the country. Reports of multiple protests in Kabul late last night. People protested in the streets of Kabul against Pakistan. They protested against Pakistan's terror activities in war-torn Afghanistan. Late night, even women came out and protested against Pakistan. They refrained to speak directly against the Taliban, but indirectly protested against them. And also they were saying that the death of Pakistan and long live Afghanistan. So there's clear anger on the streets of Afghanistan when it comes to Pakistan's intervention in the affairs of Afghanistan. Now, earlier Ahmad Massoud asked the people to stand against the Taliban as well as Pakistan. Yesterday, CNN News 18 also reflected how people are upset because of the tricolour flag being removed from the presidential palace after the insistence of the ISI chief who visited Kabul. I'm joined by Anand Narasimhan on the broadcast on this piece of breaking news. So, Anand, on the ground, clear anger against Pakistan, but the Taliban regime, which is slowly taking shape in that war-torn country, taking its lead, taking charge in that country with clear support from the Pakistani establishment. Even though there is anger on the streets, the Taliban, with the help of Pakistan, is firmly in control of the country.
Yes, but at this point in time, it just looks like the Pakistani army and the Pakistani intelligence outfit, or that means the establishment, has come to serve the Taliban, and they have tried to ensure that that they have a certain level, set of leadership, and there is a certain speed which is shown in terms of announcing or forming an interim caretaker government. But replacing the Afghanistan flag is something, a promise that the Taliban themselves had made a promise to the Afghan people that till the time a new constitution is in place, they will not touch the tricolour. And but that has happened, and that has happened at the insistence of the Pakistanis, with Syed Hamid, the DG-ISI, present there. And the blame is squarely on the Pakistanis for the killing of so many people in Panjshir. the targeted aerial strike at the resistance front's headquarters, and all of that, and Ahmad Masood's message, which came out, the audio message calling for the people of Afghanistan to stand up against the Taliban and also also Pakistan, seems to have had an effect because of the shower of clarion call that we've seen in Kabul all across. And it's not just one or two protests, there were multiple protests which had come across, which were visible all across Kabul. And we're given to understand that there were such protests across other provinces too, although all the other provinces and information from there seems to have been blacked out for the moment. But clearly Pakistan is seen as the villain here. And these calls of death to Pakistan do not augur well for the establishment, who think that they will be able to control another nation via proxy and also control its army and its administration. You were taking viewers through the entire construct of the interim government, and it just looks like the Pakistanis, the establishment of the military seems to have had its way, with a lot of power being given to the Haqqanis and also those who belong to that faction which is being propped up by the Pakistanis against a faction which was more pro the Afghan people and did not want an active involvement of the Pakistanis. But it just looks like these protests will only grow unless there is a strong internal resistance movement which is seen, or an uprising which is seen. There will not be any international support, because nations will leave Afghans to their plight. That seems to be the overall construct. But Iran has taken exception to Pakistan military's direct involvement. Iran has said that they will not take to this kindly. They are also willing to. They've called, interestingly, in its statement, they have called those killed in Panjshir as martyrs, which itself is a strong statement, given the fact that Iran is one of the nations, along with Qatar, Turkey, China, Russia, who have been invited for the formation of the interim government. This itself is significant. And if Iran sees that there is not enough protection for the Shia community there, for the Hazaras, its own leader, Ismail Khan, is not given a prominent place, and that the active involvement of the Pakistan military continues on foreign soil, that is Afghan soil, there may be repercussions or there may be reactions which we could see. But right now, it's the people of Afghanistan who have to take matters into their own hands, because the resistance front will also thrive only if there is active people support from across the 34 provinces.
Absolutely. The Panjshir resistance can only go on if people support them on the ground. And as the breaking news that's coming in is that there are protests on the ground against both the Taliban as well as Pakistan's intervention. But at the same time, the global community is just a mute spectator for now, leaving Afghanistan to its own affairs, even as that tussle continues within the Taliban regime between the different factions. I'm joined by Maha Siddiqui on the broadcast, CNN News 18 Foreign Affairs editor. Maha, good morning. Maha, this name Mullah Hassan Akhund, coming out of nowhere when it comes to the new regime that is taking shape in Afghanistan. Decode the dynamics behind this name coming up to the top of the list, and at the same time, Pakistan's impact in this new government formation.
Ayushman, he can be called somewhat as a compromise candidate. So there are several factions within Taliban, and they have been at friction over government formation, because they all want now a sizable chunk of power in the new government, and that is why there has been a delay in government formation in Afghanistan by the Taliban. And the two major factions are the Taliban, the original Taliban coming in from the south, largely from Kandahar, and the eastern Taliban, which is largely Haqqani network, and the other affiliates. So basically, because there was so much friction that the government would not be formed for over 3 weeks, and they did not want the president or the leader of the government to be from one of the factions who is a strong, known leader, so to speak, because Mullah Baradur's name was doing the rounds, and Mullah Baradur is not just the co-founder of Taliban, but somebody who's been negotiating in Doha. He is from the original camp, the Kandahar camp. So his name probably was not amenable to all factions, and that is why Mullah Hassan has now been selected as somewhat of a compromise candidate, not very well known, somebody who is a little bit of a non-entity within the Taliban itself. So that is about Mullah Hassan. As far as the other dynamics within the government are concerned, it is still going to be Taliban heavy, as we have been pointing out. The Haqqanis are getting a large chunk. They might get the Interior Ministry as well, which ultimately would mean that they will be able to appoint governors. At least they will have their own governors, is what we are learning, in at least 6 of the eastern provinces. So they are getting a sizable chunk in this government as well. These are some of the broader details that have come in, apart from what you've already mentioned. And it is expected that today there will be some sort of an announcement unless the situation remains as it were.
Thank you, Maha, for joining us on the broadcast and decoding the dynamics behind the regime formation in war-torn Afghanistan.